Right, this video hasn't quite gone to plan. Before I had a chance to show you the finishing off of the handles for those two prangs, I came down with a dreadful cold, so I've actually had 2 weeks off where I've been barely able to talk at all. I'm still not sounding quite right. Anyway, during that time I actually managed to sell both of those prangs. The first one went off to a chap called John, and the second one, probably shouldn't say who it's for because it's a present. Somebody's bought it as a present for their husband. Now, I realised I couldn't post that one until I'd actually used it as a template to do some copies. So those two are in the rough forging stage at the moment. So I'll show you the finishing off of those ones, and then I'll give this one a final sharpen and we'll put it through its paces, see what it can do. So I need to make another handle, and I thought it might be fun to make the handle using the prototype. So the first thing is then to cut it down a bit. Now hopefully this will split quite straight because it's oak. It tends to do that if you get a nice clean bit. So I'm going to put that here, there. No. I'm going to put that there and hit it with a hammer. So if I use this is a rawhide and copper faced mallet. I could use one of these carpenter's mallets, but that won't last very long, obviously hitting the back of that. If I use a normal hammer, it's going to take some damage on the spine, because remember I softened this spine to make it more durable. But I can hit it all day long with either of these faces and it'll be fine. So we're in the right place there. Cool, that's a tough bit of wood. Well, it held up to that. I'd have been absolutely gutted if it hadn't, but yeah, still nice and straight. So by doing that, lots of little cuts, and then chop them off, I can be quite accurate on what I'm aiming at. So you may or may not be able to see there is an outline that I've traced on there. So one of the things I want to do is to be able to take a piece of wood like this and then split out a spoon blank and then go through all the roughing process using just the parang, either the chopping action or the smaller carving action, and then go straight from this to the carving knife and the hook knife. So in other words, transition straight from this whacking great knife to this much smaller carving knife. Cool, it's tough stuff. So it does feel very safe and controllable when I'm gripping it like that. I can really get in there and just chip away. Yeah, that's nearly there now. Thought I'd whip up another one while I was here. This one's got some mad sporting on it. So this sported grain is where it's just on the verge of starting to rot, and it's crept in through the fibres of the wood. Obviously because it's dried out now, it's not going to rot, but it's quite an interesting effect. I've only ever seen it in beech before, not oak like this. So these two are handles fitted, not glued obviously, but they're all fitted up, and these two are now ready for heat treat. Then I'll be back to where I was. Preheat the oil, or at least make it liquid. It doesn't do well in the cold, olive oil. Good. Final check for straightness. So they're straight, but are they hardened? Sometimes they don't sound hardened at first because they've got a layer of carbon over the hardened steel. There we go. Right, now that I can actually hold it, well, only for a few seconds. That's now set, as it were. It's cooled down too much for me to do any more straightening. So it's just as well, it's nice and straight. This one's still a bit warm. So that's the only time you have to correct any warping from the heat treatment. Ideally there wouldn't be any warping, and when I do the smaller knives, it's very rare that there's any at all. The thing is here that the blade is just too big to get a perfectly even heat on it, and in any case what I need to concentrate on is getting the cutting edge properly hardened. The spine I'm actually going to soften up anyway, so that's not crucial at all. But I think that's the reason that with these prangs they tend to pick up a bit of a curve to them. It's because you've got, you know, different things going on in different areas of the piece of metal. But like I say, you get a minute or so in which you can correct it, and that's what this is. So it's just 2 points there and 1 point there, and then by putting it in and gently winding the vise, I can put a bit of pressure on and sort it out. What I wouldn't want to do is put it over the anvil and actually strike it, because then I'm just putting more stress in, and that stress would probably come out when I temper it and it would go curvy again. Right, they're both at the same temperature. So, off to the kitchen oven with these. I'm going to do 2 tempering cycles at gas mark 9 of about an hour each. And then back here in the morning, finish these 2 off. Now we've had 2 tempering cycles, it'll have taken that brittleness out of the blade and made it much more durable. It'll have a bit of give to it and much more appropriate for chopping. Still though, I'm going to go one step further and actually draw the temper completely out of the spine. I'm going to bring this up to heat and then dive outside and stick it in the big slack tank of water. So it might seem a bit harsh quenching a blade in water, but it's not quenching it from critical heat, it's just quenching it from a very low tempering heat. Do the edge first, and you can see there that rainbow colour, the rainbow colour there, and that's gone past purple there, and there's the different oxides there, and then this bit is a bit yellow. So you may be able to make out there the colours in that spine. So it's a very dark blue purple, which is what I was after. And you can see there on the blade itself there's only the tiniest colour change, so that indicates that the heat really didn't come down very far. So that's splendid. Now that heat treatment's out of the way, next then I'm going to fit the handles and glue them and pin them on. I'm just going to go over the tangs with the grinding disc, is to take this black oxide off and then give us a rough surface for the epoxy to grip to. There it is. It's had a couple of hours and the epoxy's gone off quite nicely. So I'm going to clean it up. First I'm going to chop off the pokey out bits of the pins, and I'll just do that in the bandsaw. I've still left them a bit proud because I'll deal with that when I sand down the handle on the belt sander. But to avoid clogging up the belt sander with the epoxy, I'm going to just take off the excess with a knife. Okay, back to the belt sander next. This blue belt is the 80 grip and it's quite rough but not mega aggressive. But I'm going to use this to smooth off the handle, and then I'll put the initial grind onto the knife. It shouldn't take that long because I've forged it in most of the way, but yeah, this will just even it up and bring that to a point. Right, I'm going to give them a quick burnish and then get on with putting those profiles in. So what I'm doing now is working on the flat part of the platen to get this bit where I want it, and then because it's going to roll towards the edge like that, to do that I'm going to use the little bit of slack here between the platen and the actual roller. So I'm going to push into that bit and that'll bring it in a nice convex manner over towards establishing a point. There they are then. So they're brought to an edge now using just the 80 grit. So actually sharp-ish. But before I sharpen them properly, I'm going to finish off the handles. Something I discovered when making the spoons, and I'm sure it's obvious to anyone who's an actual woodworker, is the value of scraping the wood. So once rather than just sanding it, bits on the inside here where it's still a bit uneven, and go a long way towards smoothing it out by scraping it, and then it means there's less sanding to do, which is always nice. I found the best thing is to sand the copper as well as the wood. Just go ahead and sand everything together, which on something fairly coarse like the 80 here looks pretty terrible, but as I work up through the grits, the copper actually looked quite nice. By the time I finished, it then looks really patinated, I suppose. Cool. Now then, I'm going to soak it in board linseed oil. So I'll put it in here and leave it overnight. I will get a bit on the blade. I've often heard that if you have a rag soaked in linseed oil, it can spontaneously combust when it dries out. I've never actually managed to do it though. Even soaking a rag in linseed oil and leaving it in the sun didn't make it magically blow up. Yeah, just in case, I'll put the rag outside. It'd be nice to know if it was actually true. Anyway, it's a bit annoying I can't completely submerge them, but I think it'll do. Right, that's taken these two substantially towards being like this one, the prototype. So I think the only thing left to do is put the final edge on there. So I've got to work up through all the grits on the belt sander and take it from its current sort of rough edge all the way up to 600 grit, and then it will be nice and sharp at that point. That's as far as I've taken this one. I haven't actually used the rods. So these are ceramic rods, and this is what I normally use on the smaller knives to get a proper razor edge on them, and they'll become shaving sharp. I'll probably do the same just for the sake of it. Obviously a prang doesn't need to be shaving sharp, that's not really its intention, but yeah, why not. So tomorrow then, once these have had a good soaking overnight, I'll put that final edge on and we'll give it a test. It's amazing how good the handles look with linseed oil. Really brings out the grain. Okay, I'm going to let the oil dry on those and sharpen the prototype one. So this has been taken all the way up to 600 grit on the belt sander, and that's a bevel, that's a convex bevel that comes down on both sides to an edge. And what I'm going to do now is just put it through here, just like I did with the cleaver, through these ceramic rods. Now these are set to give an overall 25-degree angle. So all I've got to do is to keep this vertical and pull it through like that. I'm not pushing particularly hard on the rods as I do this. And what that's doing is putting a tiny micro bevel. So if you imagine the bevel curving over like this, it's then putting a micro bevel on it on one side and then on the other. And so this way it's just peace of mind really, because it tells me I've got a completely consistent bevel, micro bevel on there. So the edge is nice and consistent all the way down. And then I can finish the sharpening process off by stropping the blade, and you can do that by dragging it across leather or a leather belt, or some people use a MDF wheel and a bench grinder, or you can just use your leg. So I got some incredibly filthy jeans on, and the denim makes a jolly good stropping surface. So that should be pretty sharp now. Let's get a bit of paper. Call that sharp. First test then, we'll be chopping some kindling. I'm really not expecting any problems at all with this. So a lot of people, when they're chopping kindling, will use what somebody referred to in one of my comments, which I rather like the name of, chicken stick. So you put a stick like that on the kindling, and then you're less likely to chop your fingers off when you're splitting the wood. And when your knife is actually razor sharp, that's probably a fairly smart idea. So yeah, it flies through that. Let's do a bit more while we're here. This one's got a knot in it. Let's see how it goes with that. Well, it barely noticed. The other way of chopping something without hitting your fingers is just to tap it into it, then you can get your hand well out of the way. And we're through. Oh, here's a good test. So this is a piece of, that was all softwood. This is a lump of oak. So let's try chopping this. So far then, I've shown you some, well, paper cutting, splitting of wood, carving of wood, and of course the other thing that prangs are used for is hacking through the undergrowth. So yeah, let's go and find some. It's the wrong time of year to find anything that looks like proper jungle, but I do have this load of hazel here that I need to cut down this winter anyway. This is part of a hedgerow that I'm bringing back under control. Right, so stuff like this, it went straight through in one hit. I'm going to go with this one, which is about a 2-inch stem of hazel. I'm not strong enough to blitz through that in one hit, but I'm curious to see what it would be like chopping it. See if I can sned some of this. Let's see how the edge is held up. There's no deformation, no rolling of the edge. So that tells me I've got the geometry just right. If I'd made this too acute, the convex curve here, it would have gone sharper, but it might have been too delicate of an edge, and hacking into the wood like that, it might have pushed that edge over and rolled it. So there's been none of that, which is nice. And there's no chipping or anything like that. So chipping would occur if I hadn't tempered the blade properly. Little chunks of it might chip out the edge. Although, to be honest, on green wood, I think that's unlikely. If that was going to happen, it would have happened on the oak. Yeah. Still straight, which is nice. Yeah. Back in the workshop then, after that little adventure to the woods. This is the prototype then. I think I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to send out this one, because it's got a nicer handle to it. I should probably reprofile this handle to match this one actually. Anyway, so this is going to somebody as a present. The first one is already gone, and this one is up for grabs. And then I've got, what have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 here that I can make into more prangs if there's a demand for them. There we go then, from one of those to one of those. And you've seen what it can do. So yeah, if you want your own, you're welcome to contact me for the website. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.